It has been exactly 110 years since Leo Tolstoy, arguably one of the greatest realistic fiction writers who ever lived, passed away. Still, he keeps being part of the literary world through his two longest works. The first one, War and Peace. The second, Anna Karenina, which I usually have a very hard time pronouncing. This time I was lucky, I guess. According to British poet and critic Matthew Arnold, a novel by Tolstoy is not a piece of art, it is a piece of life. Another prominent English writer, Virginia Woolf, considered Tolstoy to be the finest novelist who ever lived. According to her, he had such observational powers that elicited a kind of fear in the mind of the readers. Some considered him to be an embodiment of nature and pure vitality, while few considered him to be an incarnation of the world's conscience. Very, very heavy words. But does this account portray a true and complete picture of one of the finest literary artists who ever lived? Let's find out. Apart from all the facts that I just mentioned about Tolstoy, he also holds the honor of being one of the most well documented authors of all time. He had this uncanny habit of keeping a diary in which he recorded almost all of his thoughts, some of which are extreme to say the least. So when Tolstoy, at the age of 32, was to be married to Sonia, who was 18 at that time, had this thought of revealing all his secrets, all his passions to her. He thought of bringing all his diaries along with him. But when Sonia read those diaries, she felt angry, disgusted, and jealous because those diaries contained all the details of Tolstoy's previous love affairs. The couple managed to reconcile and they eventually got married, but the toxic pattern repeated itself for the next 48 years. Tolstoy was a lucky man by all measures. He had a large family who doted on him. He was rich, both by the estates that he had inherited and from the sale of his books. But somehow, at the age of 50, he felt immensely unhappy. He felt ashamed of the novels that he had written, the same novels for which he still remembered. So he decided that he will live the life of a common peasant, that he will devote himself towards spirituality, towards helping others. And therefore he requested his family to follow him in this new passion, in this new spirit. But did Tolstoy really mean that? Because he dressed like a common peasant, but whenever he fell ill, he used to travel in the most luxurious coach available towards the south. Despite his newfound vow of celibacy, he kept making his wife pregnant. So, after years of suffering through this, Tolstoy finally left his home, his wife, in the October of 1910. But his freedom was short lived because the newspapers were full of accounts of how Tolstoy had left behind his home, his money, his fame, his wife, his life. Wherever the train stopped, he was mobbed by reporters, devoted fans, and just the curious ones. Soon he couldn't withstand the packed, freezing conditions of the train and fell deathly ill. Tolstoy breathed his last on November 20, 1910, exactly 110 years ago. A dramatic end to a masterclass. I sometimes wonder that how can someone who had it all in life, money, fame, legacy, behave in such an erratic manner towards the fag end of his life? Well, even with the luxury of hindsight, at least I cannot answer that. But as Tolstoy, in his masterpiece War and Peace, had written, we can only know that we know nothing. And that is the highest degree of wisdom. So keep following the channel for more interesting content on history, education, life, and much more. And if you like this content, please do consider subscribing to it. Until then, adios.